Welcome back to Ensō, Tell Me More. My name's Anette Lan, and we're here today. We have the joy of welcoming Jamie from Aikenka Matcha, a company that really hits I love matcha, and I love finding companies that are blending Canadian culture with Japanese culture, because that is my story. And so, Jamie, I'm hearing this great story of where you even followed your roots here and finding culture and that mindfulness in the art of matcha. So today's conversation is really close to my heart. As many of you guys know from the book Ensō, A Tree Still Grows, I grew up watching my mother doing Japanese tea ceremony. And what's so beautiful about the tea ceremony is it's very deliberate and mindful and quiet and reverent in that space. So that was my first lesson in presence, and it planted a lifelong fascination on how ritual and simplicity and intention can restore that balance in our fast evolving world. So Jamie, I'll give you this opportunity to introduce yourself here, and welcome to this conversation.
Thank you. I've started this matcha brand about 1.5 years ago. And I would say that our kind of core values with starting this brand, it came from, I don't know if I should talk about my history a bit, but, it all kind of came together. I discovered my Japanese roots. My great-grandmother was from Kyushu. I was very into the philosophy of tea as well, especially the Japanese tea ceremony. Like you mentioned, kind of connected all of my beliefs and how I want to go through life in terms of intentionality and presence. I became very into matcha probably 10 years ago, before it was really big. I couldn't tell you where I was getting it, probably the grocery store. And then, it kind of started to, I think coffee, the whole single origin was so big. And I didn't find that there was a lot of the kind of same type of industry with matcha. And, I knew I wanted to kind of dig deeper, and I was super interested in just having that connection with farmers and the source, and, obviously going to Japan. And I knew that I wanted to find farmers that were really doing something more than, the norm, which is, of course, organic farming. All of our matcha is organic, but also something, farms that were really inspiring, taking chances, doing something different. We partnered with a few farms. One uses solar panels, one is completely hand-picked and really old, since the Edo period. I just wanted to build this kind of umbrella of a brand under these farms that were, again, like you said, also very, very intentional, really cared about the connection with the earth. The tea was their sacred practice. It's kind of how it started.
Oh, that's so amazing. And you're in Vancouver,
Yes. Yeah,
for the audience here to hear as well. So I always love starting with the seed, and the seed's that origin story, and yours is so interesting. To go a little bit deeper into that, of let's dive more into that curiosity that you had of the connection to matcha and the Japanese tea ritual.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think some people feel like they have that kind of ancestral pull to things. So who's to say if that was some, factor and everything. But when as we were speaking before, my mother was adopted, and later in life we discovered all of her ancestors in Japan, and then they ended up moving to California. So that was a really, really cool discovery. And at that time, I was very interested in, these practices of meditation and yoga, and something about incorporating the tea ceremony. It was kind of with it. It added this extra element that I would say comes from sense, maybe, instead of meditation. There's something about adding taste, I guess, and presence with this other being that you're kind of focused on. And I found that to be even more powerful. So I just became so enamored with the tea ceremony. And I think anyone that's kind of been able to join a very, very traditional one, everyone's kind of feels how special it is. And they're like, why was that, amazing? It's like, you're kind of forced to just fully be there. And I think if you're not used to it, you might get a little squirmy at first and a little bored, but you feel, yes, you feel like the intentionality behind every movement, and you're really forced with being so present with all of your senses at the same time. And you're also with other people. So it's this, weird mix of feeling that presence within yourself, but also this kind of shared moment without having to feel that need to converse or kind of, indulge in that common pleasantry. And it just becomes, you just really feel like the importance of it. So those were kind of my experiences with, my like first tea ceremony. And I just, found them to be so special.
Oh, that's so incredible. And so like, when was it in your life that you then discovered the Japanese roots?
I would say, I think it was about maybe 10 years ago. So maybe around like college age, a little bit later. And then, I think with matcha, I was actually visiting Vancouver before I lived here. I think I was at, a very small kitchen store, and I found like a whisk and, the bowl, the chawan for the first time. And I was like, what is this? And I was just, I had never really had a matcha practice, but I bought it because I was so like, I don't know, the tactile experience of the bowl. And I was just really, really drawn to it. So that was kind of the seed a while ago. And I was probably just not really knowing what I was doing, but I was very, very drawn to these tools. And that was kind of another window into just being like getting really enamored with the whole practice and philosophy behind it. And yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I mean, I definitely can speak like and empathize and feel the same space of the Ensō mindset here was a pull. And I used to have these recurring dreams of my Jichan doing the Ensō circle. And I didn't really fully understand it until I was like, I'm going to dive into what was it? And then I almost, it was if like I would like channel his own mindset of what the purpose of doing like painting an Ensō circle a day. So it'd be so interesting to be like, what if in your background they were like matcha tea ceremonial masters of some sort that were along your lineage. And
well, so my great grandmother from Kyushu, which is for people that don't know, the largest southern island. And now, I mean, that's a huge tea producing region. One of our best selling matchas, the ceremonial blend, is from Kagoshima. And then Yame is also really, really big in tea right now as well. So I think everyone, Uji is quite famous. And I think obviously matcha has grown so much. So there's a lot of other huge regions that are kind of taking over with tea. That's one of them as well. So yeah, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. And it's so exciting though too. And so let's even like go further. So the root and the first, and we capture that curiosity of the first root. And so the roots that really valid you, I hear that you had an interest with Eastern philosophy. You kind of explore it there. And every brand really endures those roots and the values that it holds with it. So what are some of the guiding principles of Aikenka Matcha? And like, tell me more about that.
Just in terms of like values and where I want to take the brand. And I think so. I knew that I wanted it to match and be aligned with how I live my life personally. Very into a holistic life, kind of that connection with anything I consume, food, clothing, all of that. So I think that I didn't want to just source and to kind of put my name on it and not really know where it was coming from intimately. And I was so interested, and I've always been really, really interested in, farming and with tea. And so I think I always try with everything that we source and continue. Like I want to know as much as I can. And personally, hopefully, getting to actually tea pick, knowing exactly the fields that are being ground into the tea that I'm now sharing with, our Canadian customers. And I knew that I knew everything I wanted to be organic. I found it really interesting that, organic farming, it's everything used to be organic farming at some point. And then obviously with increased demand, conventional farming took over. And then there's been now, I think, more consumers are being a bit more conscious of what they're consuming. And so I think there's been more of a demand for that as well. So I think it's still, I think it only makes up for maybe 1% of tea farming. It's still very, very small, but it is growing. And it's one of those reasons is it's very risky to do. So one of our newest partners, which is a region outside Kyoto, and they said that they started with more conventional farming. They were very successful. And the owner actually, the story is very interesting. He was trying to drink sake and felt sick or something. And he went to the hospital and they actually found really high levels of pesticides like in his blood. So he was like, oh, it interfered with my daily little drink. So I obviously was like, okay, I want to dedicate, my whole business and practice, like became very, very passionate about that kind of pure farming. And so, to go from conventional farming and to change all of your fields, it's very, very risky. I think they lost a lot of business. It was, they struggled for a while, but now they're one of the most successful known organic farms probably in that region after a while. So, those are one partners. I look for inspiring stories like that, that these families a lot of the time, especially with the smaller farms that I find that are really passionate, that's their whole lifeblood. Their parents had the farm, they take on the farm. I find, I think intentionality, as we talked about, like why I'm even starting a business, I have to think about all of that in every aspect, with sourcing. And I always kind of want to find that connection and find these farms that are doing something differently as well. So that's kind of like the basis for how I kind of continue to explore and look for new farms. And I will say it's been interesting because, obviously as a business, I want to grow and, I have expenses. And I think sometimes my values can go a bit against that because I want to work with these really small farms, but they're obviously very limited. So it's been I've only been in business for a year. So it's been an interesting practice of how can I, source enough matcha? How can I partner and be able to grow my own brand with also sourcing with farms that I feel very passionate about. And a lot of times that is, it can't be someone just making a few kilograms of matcha. So it's been definitely an interesting balance to find with farms.
Absolutely. Yeah. And those that are still really rooted and grounded to the traditions and what made it organic, right? As you said, of like how we shifted to more industrial, we go for mass production versus the quality of things that we have. Yeah. And through my lineage search as well, I discovered my great uncle was a Shinto priest. And in that Meiji, like 1800 period, and studying of what the role the Shinto priests really were, which they were like the leadership conduit to what the land and what it did to the community. And understanding like Shintoism is like there's a kami or a god in every nature's being and presence. I found that so interesting because I was like, oh, so essentially they were like the ones that kept us so in touch with the earth and the ground and the cyclic in nature that would happen.
Yeah, right? It's very, very Spirited Away-esque. And
yeah, Miyazaki. And
yeah. That's awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. But there's so much that carries with that. I think that we're leaning and we're pulling for more in our society of just wanting to be back in touch with what feels natural versus the manufactured spaces where we forget that there's cycles and it's just not about constant productivity and constant production.
Right.
But the quality comes from when you let nature do its magic. Right. Yeah.
It's very interesting, this theme where there's been a lot of obstacles, obviously, the first years, but, if you're into matcha, you've probably seen some headline about a matcha shortage and, the demand, and it's getting so crazy. And every cafe is doing these, 5 grams of matcha with all this syrup and powder and this and that. And I find that it's funny because the philosophy behind this is, it can't be rushed. And, the process of matcha is so elaborate and so time consuming. And it's just funny that this, demand and consumerism is used to that, like, okay, like more. And it's actually now with an industry that's like really not able to move any quicker than it can. So I just find it kind of funny that it's really as teaching us patience. And it's interesting because I am in that industry, and as a brand owner, I want to, you want to respect the process still. And so I struggle with trying to do things that are popular versus like what I really believe. And, there's a lot of influencers that, they start a matcha brand and it's like, they're going to get, a huge company and that's just going to be bam, 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 and fun lattes and this and that. How can I kind of be myself and why I, talk about what I believe, about this whole industry and the philosophy, while kind of finding that audience. And I do hope that if I just kind of continue to remain true to my values and my ideas towards matcha and the brand, that will hopefully attract the similar audience, and I would rather have that kind of surrounding the brand than just be like, okay, what can I do to just like be a huge brand and sell all this matcha and do what everyone else is doing on TikTok as well. So that's also been an interesting thing to kind of ruminate on as well as a brand owner. So
well, hopefully this story will help you kind of like tie back to who you are to the core, and what so that like the roots of the tree are what hold it steady when the storm comes, right? So those tap roots of just being its authenticity of what it is. And I mean, definitely the storm is coming because Stephen Bartlett, and he just did this biggest investment into a matcha company in the UK. And oh my goodness, what is it? Slipping my name, but like the Dragon's Den style.
Okay.
It was the biggest offer that they'd ever, and it was a matcha company.
Wow.
Yeah. So to speak to the why, and knowing like those who are still going to honor traditions that you don't want to lose, right? Those traditions that you don't want to lose. And I think in this world evolving as we go with so many different things, it's like the ones that were always really good to humanity of like, well, matcha is one of those. It's like its key concept was in the mindfulness and the purity of many different things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I have some clips I can share as well in my Instagram, but when our newest partner, I was asking him kind of all the questions of, the increase in popularity. What do you think of this trend? And, there's a lot of these brands that have done really well and a lot of big social media following, which I struggle with social media as well, because I was not a social media person before. And as you kind of have to take on that role when you're building a brand, of course. But, there's matcha trends where he runs this farm. He's like, I hate this, but people like pretend to put matcha in like cocaine lines. Have you seen that?
No.
And he's like, he's like, it's so disrespectful. And it's it's such this big, like trending thing to, to do stuff like that. And he's like, I hate it. And, and then I'm like, yeah, it's like weird. And I was like, okay, I would rather be a business that is respected by the farmers and the business that I'm sourcing from, other than doing these big videos to try to go viral. And it's so
it's back to the purpose and the intention. Absolutely.
Right.
Well, some of my favorite videos that you have are when you are going through and showing the behind the scenes and the actual farmers, because it's a side of like you fully respect what and how it's made. Because when you know and understand the Japanese culture of how much care they put into mastery of just doing those certain things, and the devotion that really comes, it's like a whole nother appreciation you come to enjoying the matcha itself.
And it makes me so much more excited to, it's again, that real connection, and being a business owner is so hard. And if you don't have that spark of the why, it's very easy to lose steam. And so I think I was actually supposed to, and they didn't have room, but I was going to go back to this other farm and just spend a week even working on the farm, like day and night, and just getting to really more and more experience, where these leaves come from. And it just, the love and obsession, I would say, with matcha just continues to deepen. And with the guy I was just mentioning, they're very big and they don't have a lot of stock. And I think what's changed a lot is, even when I first started a year or so ago, now you have to make your basically yearly reservation, which as a new business is very hard to have the cash to do, and also estimate what you think you're going to sell, a year in. So, and then if you don't, reserve enough, then you're out, then you're just out for the whole year. So it's very tricky, but I was able to really kind of be persistent with a few of these farms that, are really big. Like we're able to get a very small amount from the first certified organic farm in all of Japan. I basically was like in the middle of nowhere with my suitcase, being like, I'm coming here, like I'm going to pick up a sample in person. I'm in Japan. And yeah, it was, you really have to be that persistent, because again, these people don't have a lot of matcha to give as well. But one thing, someone who runs the farm said, when people email me, because matcha is this huge trend now almost, and the first thing he asks is, okay, like, will you come to Japan? And that's kind of how he weeds out who's really serious about this and passionate about this. And, they're very protective of their product. I mean, there's so much love and work that goes into these fields, and they want to make sure that, like, yeah, it's very important for them to pick their partners. And I think that is also a very Japanese tradition with work, which I have noticed. It's very personal. And I do love that and respect that. They're not just going to sell to anybody. So I thought that was, that was very interesting. So I do think it's, important to do that. And that's what I would look for if I was, buying something. Oh, is this, how involved is the business owner in the product? Are they just like slapping their name in and using a 3PL, and so that's kind of, again, going back to intentionality, connection. Those are kind of like the two main words that I always come back to with the business and life.
Find that having some roots of Japanese where they probably go, hey, like,
no, I think they are excited, to hear that as well. And I will say I've been slacking, but I did take a beginner class last year. And then, probably like a few weeks before a trip, I'll try to use like Duolingo and just even, showing that effort of a few sentences in Japanese. They really appreciate a lot. But it is a very difficult language to, for it to stick without practicing too, I find, so it is. Yeah. But it's, Duolingo is not going to help you be fluent in anything, but I think being there and obviously would be amazing. And I would love to continue to spend more time. I think right now I'm definitely on a once a year trip. I was maybe going to go for another trip in the fall. They're still harvesting hojicha a bit. But yeah, it looks like I'm going to have to wait till the spring, unfortunately, but maybe I can go for a bit longer. And that's like spring harvest, which is most of our matcha, the highest quality. So get my hands dirty. I love doing that stuff though. It's a very meditative experience. So I would love to be put to work on a farm and just be busy all day, sunrise, sundown, live in that kind of simplistic cycle.
Yeah. How amazing too. And so we kind of are going to go like a little bit more just as we go through these last spaces of like, I know how much the Japanese do like and foster connection and trust, and so many of the Japanese principles are through like education, storytelling, and ritual. And so when I think of the branches, and the branches are like what your outreach is to others. And how do you see your brand extending its branches to others, whether through community or sustainability or even that cross-cultural collaboration?
Yeah, I think I would love to. There's been so many setbacks the last month, but eventually, where I see the brand growing, I would love to kind of pick certain causes in the community to be able to work with. I think because we are an e-commerce brand, which I love in a lot of ways because it does kind of give you a lot more freedom. To kind of expand in different ways, but I definitely want to do some more of like events, some more sponsorships. We definitely like do donations. We've done some for auctions when we can. Yeah, I think I would like to grow more of that, be involved in events. I think we've done, small classes with like a yoga studio too, and just kind of keep incorporating more of this, philosophy a bit more than just kind of, being a stand at an event that just sells lattes, which I will, I'm sure that I will do. And that does help outreach the brand. But again, like being a bit more, and I'm very intentional about who we partner with. I haven't done a lot of pop-ups. I think that's also important too. Like what brands do you want to be connected to as well? I think that's also important. But yeah, of course, the more that you grow, the more you can give back. So that's always, that's always on the back of my mind as well.
Yeah, that's so exciting. One of the spaces that my mom keeps on encouraging me, and I'm curious for you too, to learn Chado and the actual traditional. We have the JCC, which is the Japanese Canadian Cultural Center here in Toronto, and they teach Chado and tea ceremony. So it's been on my to-do list to go and actually learn. I asked my mother. My mother doesn't want to teach me.
Well, so UBC actually had a tea ceremony too, because they have a tea house in the Japanese garden. They have a huge Japanese garden, which is beautiful. So I've done that. Anything else I can kind of do is really special. And I think whoever ran that, they also do private tea classes. So that is something that I would like to join. And the owner, it's very serious, because I wanted to lead something. I was doing a class with a yoga studio about incorporating some of the philosophy as well as movement and yoga and doing this merge. And I had emailed her wanting to do, a few classes just to more educate myself. And her response was quite funny. It was, she said, oh, it's, it takes a lifetime to master this, basically. Like, how dare you come in for a few classes? And I was like, very fair.
Oh, I think my mother would have given probably the same thing. Even through writing the book, one of her things, she said, don't cheapen the language. And I was like, Mother, I won't. Don't worry. It's to actually honor and help actually preserve what its integrity that it has, right? And yes, it's a lifelong practice, and that's I believe that's one of the paradoxes of to be so rigid with what tradition, but understanding where the future and how fast it's moving, and how do we find that grace and fluidness of finding what the dynamic to find both the fusioneering of old traditional and what the pace of the future is happening.
Right. Because I don't want to be too, I think you can kind of scare people off too if your brand is so focused on that and you advertise all of your matcha, which I do, and Usucha style and if you're very into how it's traditionally supposed to be drank. I also want to be an approachable brand too. So I am still trying to merge and balance that, share a lot of tradition without saying I'm an expert, but, sharing as a sense of this is what I know. And then kind of, sharing that with my community in a way that will make sense for people as well, instead of them kind of being turned off. Because, I think the yoga community can be a little bit like that as well. I've been in that community for a long time. You have your really serious, intense Ashtanga yogis, and that's very intimidating for people, this intense series, so I think it's kind of also similar in terms of the world of tea and matcha. And I want to just be a brand that people can just ask questions about and be open and transparent and, share matcha. It's also, I want to share matcha that is from these amazing farms, it obviously needs to taste amazing as well. So I'm really, you know, the matcha that I'm sharing is matcha that I personally love, and it is subjective too. So, you know, it is what it is. If you might not, you know, it's kind of like a really expensive, you know, wine, you know, of some variety. Someone might like $2 chuck from Trader Joe's better. And it's just, it is what it is. But in terms of, you know, how it's cultivated, you know, our matcha is definitely like the best of the best in how it's produced. So I can't control if everyone is gonna love it. This is matcha that I love, and I've been drinking it for a while. And I think the organic world is a little bit different. Like there's incredible non-organic matcha, but you know, the more that I learn, and I continue to learn more and more about production, is the actually sometimes like a very matcha with a lot of umami, like a lot of people on TikTok love for like lattes and this and that, actually is partly due to the pesticides. Like they're very yeah, they go hand in hand. That's something I was learning from some of the workers at a farm last year. That is kind of the cause of it. So yeah, it's quite interesting. And, you know, as a consumer, you have to like choose what is important to you. And I think there's nothing wrong with drinking non-organic matcha sometimes, but as someone who drinks a lot of tea, it's important for me to kind of, yeah, drink something that I know is going to be kind of as pure as possible.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like that fruit, which is like the wisdom that you give away. And I already hear you're a very young company, but very solid in your integrity and the purpose and reason why you went into this to beginning. And and that as a mindfulness practice. And so I'm gonna kind of go from that of like, what wisdom do you hope people take away when they experience your matcha, like not just in taste, but more in spirit?
I love this question. It's a great interview. I love talking about all the, because yeah, there's so much beyond just this product, right? I think that's what's so special about matcha is it's like, it's not just this tea. I hope that when they, with what I'm able to share with each matcha that I source, I hope that they really kind of think and experience like the rich history behind it. They think about how much work and love and history and all of that comes into this 1 teaspoon of powder and how special it was to even get there. I think about that a lot too. And also, you know, I know the farmers too, so it's even more special. And I think that will really, you know, kind of transfer into the practice of making it and being present, because you're really thinking about and being intentional of like where this came from. And I think that really helps with the whole experience of, you know, making your matcha in the morning and slowing down and having that connection, deep connection with, yeah, the product that you are consuming and how special it is. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. And then hopefully like one of these times I can come and enjoy a matcha with you in Vancouver.
Yes.
my very best of friends, she lives in Maple Bay on the island. So
Nice.
last time I was out there in 2024. So to come out and to the mountains and yeah. And I mean something for myself of experiencing in Japan different cultural things. I love to be able to have the opportunity to work a matcha farm. I think that would be
so special. And it's something that, you know, I won't go on a rant about the tourism in Japan because obviously I'm a tourist too, but the main cities have gotten so bad and everyone kind of does the same things. And I feel very lucky that my second time in Japan, you know, you feel free from doing the things you're supposed to do. And most of my trips are through the lens of like my business now and the tea farms. And so I'm getting to go and experience real Japan. And it's so special. And I really urge people, my PSA when visiting Japan is to really do something that's not read about and just pick, you know, sometimes I end up staying near a train station in the middle of a random town that I've never heard of, and walking around is that I'm the only Westerner there, you know, that's like the most special experience. And that's when you really kind of can see real Japanese life instead of, you know, going to Kyoto and going to all the temples, which they are incredible, but you're just standing in line and there's just a million, you know, tourists ahead of you. And so I think some farms, they do offer like tea experiences. A lot are private. I think some of the ones that we work with, it's just people that they work with. But it is if you can find one too, it is a very, very special experience, and something a little bit different. So.
And something the Japanese just love of sharing their culture and their tradition and their rituals and much to say. So to really to close this all out as well, I always love this end question. So it goes into the canopy and like the vision that you hope to create. So when you look ahead, like what vision do you hold for Aikenka Matcha, and what do you imagine blooming beneath its shade?
I would say I want to kind of pick, I want to have more of a kind of a main farm, which I believe that I have, but I could only reserve a certain amount of matcha this year. But it's a farm I visited outside Kyoto, and it's, yeah, I think I just, when I visited and spent the day there, I felt an immediate connection with everything. And they have a really big plans to kind of expand. So basically they have like untouched fields, which hopefully I'll get to go and work on way deep in the hills. So they're working on kind of getting that soil and those fields ready to expand and grow more matcha. And they have this huge plan to have like horses and have it almost be this really like wild organic farm. And I would love to be a part of that. As they're building this, for years to come. They have kind of this huge vision. And I would love to that really aligns with everything that I'm passionate about as well. So it would be amazing to have like a big part in expanding that farm and making it kind of this big land with animals. And so that would be an amazing partnership to continue. I hope to just continue to deepen the relationships that I have with farmers. And then if I'm able to, I still would love to have a few kind of main consistent farms, and then also continue to like look and search for other inspiring farms too, do more limited edition ones, because I do want my brand. I don't want to be associated with just one matcha. I think a lot of these e-commerce brands are like, oh, okay, like found a farm, got my stuff. This is it. This is like it's just this one matcha. And it's like, I'd rather be known as a brand that, I don't want to be stuck to that. I want to like continue to source. I want to continue to share different farms with people, different matchas. I want people to come to my brand and be like, oh, what's something new? What's this farm? Learn about it and have it not be just like this one product that is they're just kind of churning out. So I kind of want it to be this open-ended, malleable brand in that sense of just knowing like these are my values, and I'm going to continue to explore within them and share that with the community. So,
oh, I love that. And I mean, Jamie, thank you for this beautiful conversation. It's listening to your journey and even hearing from like you getting so curious into your own roots of your ancestry. I think those are the most interesting stories. And it really reminds me of like that quiet resilience that comes from honoring our own tradition and following what kind of pulls us toward it, right? And so for our listeners, like I hope this story invites you to slow down, like bring a little bit more mindfulness and savor your own rituals. Like these small intentional acts remind us of like who we are and who we're rooted into being. And as I close out, you can learn more about Jamie's work in Aikenka Matcha, and we'll have the link in here as well. So before I send off, do you want to say any last words to close off?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of lovely philosophical themes that I always want to share with my community, but I always wonder if people are interested or not. Everyone's attention spans are so little. I would just say, I run most parts of the business, so I love to have that kind of. I'm still at that stage where I want to have that connection with all of our communities. So please don't hesitate to, reach out, ask questions. We really want to kind of create that, that kind of no divide between that. But yeah, happy to happy to answer any questions people have. And yeah, hopefully you guys are more interested in the history and cultivation and kind of more nerdy about matcha and more, I'd say it takes a while the more that I drink, I find like the less, I think everyone starts with like a matcha latte, which is great. Like love a matcha latte, but I find that the more, as the years pass, you want like less and less additives. Like now, like to really just like taste all of it, the stringency and the umami and the lightness. And I find like, I don't know. I want people to give it a try. It might take a while for your taste to adjust, but I find that like, if you really want to taste the differences of like single cultivar, single origin, try it first, and then you can maybe add a little bit after. And, I think you'll find that you will start to enjoy it a lot more. Yeah.
Oh, it is so good. And my mother always has some special, because, Japanese, they like to have like from different regions and omiyage. And so she always gets gifts of these little sample ceremonial that, so throughout my whole life, I've had various variations, and I'll go out and test and taste and then, but I know the core of like what that good. So I'm so excited. So really, thank you, everybody. Until next time, remember, like, growth is not always loud. Sometimes it's in those little simple, quiet moments that swirl around like a bamboo whisk in your matcha. And till next time, thank you for listening.